John Malone,
Yes,
I am
Albert.
a sinner. So, what I'm asking you is, okay, how does a person, there's lots of young people out there, okay, and I know by looking at the analytics on your YouTube videos that you have a huge following of young people, which really surprised me when I looked at it. I remember we've looked at it a few times over
Yes.
the years, and you have a huge following of people in their 20s and their 30s. Now, the question is, somebody who's a sinner who hasn't been to mass in a long, long time, hasn't done anything spiritual, and they've been listening to this anti-Catholic, anti-Christian, anti-spiritual agenda by the government and various organisations, the atheists and etc. How do people actually go about restoring their faith?
Yes, well, no, exactly. The thing is, in most cases, they've been baptised. In this country, 80%, or 85% were baptised. They made their first Holy Communion and their confirmation, but that's the last time perhaps they visited the church and availed of the sacraments. They would know something about that because they would have had that experience. Most of them would have that. We'll speak about those first, and then the ones that didn't have any of that. Now, the first thing that they would need to do is to stop and think. Stop and think and reflect. Stop whatever they're doing and see, is what I'm doing good? Is it doing me good or what? I know that I'm doing what everybody else is doing and make it out that they're happy, but I'm certainly not happy. Now, we're all sinners, by the way, but the only way to deal with that, especially Catholics, is to start nourishing. It's like everything else. If you don't nourish the soil, of your soul, you have a soul. If you don't nourish that, how are you going to nourish it? You won't nourish it by just thinking about it. You've got to do something. And what you do is you visit a church. You get a catechism if you didn't have a catechism.
Okay, some young people don't even know what a catechism is.
Well, the catechism gives a chapter and verse about what is the gift of being a Catholic that you possess. Okay. Your soul. You haven't nourished it because you haven't visited a church. You haven't said a prayer. You might even forget how to say a prayer. The Our Father, the Hail Mary, and glory be to the Father, that's the simplest things that you can possibly say. We're not even talking about the rosary as yet, because these young people perhaps have not visited a church and maybe don't even bless themselves. So you've got to start small. The first thing is to sort of admit that you have a problem. Start visiting a church. By the way, you'd need to be going to Holy Mass to save your immortal soul, but you don't hear that. You're not going to hear it with the people you're mixing with or with the media that we have available here at the present time. You won't hear it. And you're not buying the Irish Catholic and Catholic papers. So you want to start buying one or two of them.
Okay, so buy a few publications. There's a few of them. You got the tablet, you've got the
Irish Catholic, Catholic Voice. You've got these, and you'll get them in churches, and sometimes you'll get them in newsagents.
Is there any any kind of things that would be suit more, also not just the Catholic, but the Christians and the Pentecostals?
That's right. There is videos about those. There's videos about you've only got to look up any video and put in something about Christian or Catholic, as the case might be. Okay, our website is christiantvIreland.ie, and it's a great website to look and get some bit of guidance. That's one example nowadays. But they certainly, if they need to be doing that kind of thing to try and start nourishing that aspect that they've neglected, because the more it's neglected, the less chance you have of doing anything about it. And as you rightly say, we have a lot of young people following us because we do we do speak the truth as best what we observe. We're visiting towns and villages, and we see how they've declined. We've seen the decimation of family businesses. We see a lot of stuff. And we see foreign supermarkets and all the rest of it in towns and villages that heretofore had family businesses and a culture. So there's a lot of stuff that's not connected. And people are living in some way isolated lives. They have friends, but they're really acquaintances. They might be drinking companions. They might be this, that, or the other. But they're not mixing with people that have a spiritual dimension. You want to do that. You want to nourish that aspect of yourself that you have neglected. Start off by looking at something on the internet, because most of them can use the internet. They can even look at stuff on their mobile phones because of the modern stuff. But start looking at something. For example, you've got a great TV station at the moment that you will get some nourishment from, because it's not all preaching. Mm-hmm. And that is EWTN, the Eternal Word Truth Network, and you can get it on most television sets. You probably even can get it on these modern phones,
okay.
these mobile phones. But you have to sort of, and if you stop to think, you will do something about it.
Okay.
And when you do, visit a church and say a prayer and say, I'm a sinner, forgive me. Just anything at all.
I suppose
cry out.
It's also important to absorb yourself in other people that are spiritual, as in going to the church,
Correct.
the community.
Yeah.
The spiritual community.
Exactly. And some of the communities are great. There's some great connections with people that practice a Christian religion, whether it's Catholic, Orthodox, or Presbyterian, Methodist, or Church of Ireland, if they practice what they're brought up with. They have a chance of living a good life and developing that spiritual aspect of their nature. It's so important. And funny enough then, when you do that, whatever age you are, a sort of peace and joy begins to come into you, and that you haven't experienced perhaps for a long, long time.
The other thing as well is, I suppose, we live in a material society and people are quite selfish. So one thing people forget is that when you do something for somebody, okay,
That's
whether
right.
it's helping an elderly neighbour or helping in the community or doing something, you'll actually feel very good.
Correct.
But people don't realise that. A lot of people don't realise that.
There used to be a saying, it's better to give than to receive. And so you give your time. That's another thing. You give your time and you try to help those that you come in contact, because funny enough, I've come across some of those in my travels too. And right enough they are questioning, and once you question, once you sort of try to find out, you will get the answers.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. So that's what I would say to a person that hasn't practiced anything and has lost touch and has gone a different path altogether. It can't be good. It's not good, because the message coming from the secular media and secular world doesn't encourage that spiritual development. Quite the reverse. Mm-hmm. And you're responsible yourself for what you do. Mm-hmm. You can't blame this person, that person. It doesn't matter what sort of a home a person comes from, good, bad, or indifferent. Whether they were neglected in some material way, spiritual way, whatever. You're unique. Do what you think is good and right, because when you seek that, you will get the answers, and your life will change for the better. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a religious maniac or a religious that or the other. Your whole being, that part of you that was because you're made in the image and likeness of God, whether you accept it or not, and you have a soul, whether you believe it or not. Once you do something about that, nourish that, you just don't know what benefits. The benefits outweigh anything that you might think.
Yeah.
Don't have a wrong impression about it. Try to have an open mind. Don't get snared in by the secular world. because you'll have no happiness in that. You'll have no peace. You'll have no inner joy, contentment.
And of course, another way that people will restore their faith is to watch all of John Malone's videos. All 450.
Well, you know, I suppose, as you mentioned there earlier, 6 years. Well, we've managed to sort of put a lot of water under the bridge there.
We have, absolutely.
And they all have a point. And we did have a lot of prayers. As a matter of fact, I think you joined me in the Chapel of the Mercy one time.
That's right.
For the sake of a sorrowful passion, that type of thing. And so, like, we have a lot of this, and this is before anything to do with the Christian TV Ireland project that we're on.
That's it.
So there you are. So there's hope for everyone that's out there that's floundering.
Floundering is the word.
Flounder no more.
They are floundering, but they will be found.
They will. And don't swim against the tide. Come into the shore.
Absolutely.
And get the benefits.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much, Oliver.